Welcome to Faith in Practice, presented by Higher Powered Sports PT, the podcast where faith meets everyday life and vocational calling. Each episode, your host, Kurt Kessler, and his guest will explore how to live out your faith in your work, relationships, and daily challenges. Let's grow together and discover how to live out your faith with passion and purpose. Let's get started.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Faith in Practice. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Ashley Economopoulos. She is about to become a freshman women's soccer player at Old Dominion. She is a two-time Pennsylvania All-State selection. She was awarded All-Region and All-American this year. She was the Pennsylvania Player of the Year for girls soccer, John Travers Award winner, and Penn Live Girls Soccer Player of the Year. She was also the Keystone Conference Player of the Year. So we're talking to a very high-level soccer player here. My perspective, so I know Ashley from my athletic training job, and we got to know each other this year, and it was pretty much right off the bat, we were able to connect over our faith. And the reason I wanted to bring her on here today is to talk about some things that we talked about during her soccer season, which is embracing God's role for us. So Ashley, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So just give me a little bit of a background on your faith. When did you come to know Jesus, and how does that play out in your life?
Yeah, so I'd say growing up, we've always gone to church. Our parents would take us. I have three sisters, so we'd all go to church together. We'd go to Sunday school. We'd sit in the church service sometimes. We'd work at the church, volunteer. So we'd really be involved with the church. And then I'd say more so during COVID is when we really started getting into our faith, because I think we just had more time on our hands. I know my dad got really close to God during COVID. He started reading the Bible. He started watching podcasts. He was doing audiobooks, all this stuff. And then during COVID, when the church was closed, he would do his own sermons every Sunday. So we do church as a family in our living room. And I think that just spending time with our family and learning or growing closer to God really helped us. And then I think we learned how important it was. And then as we got older, we brought it, obviously we started playing, we brought it in with our sports, and that's when we learned to we'd pray before games. My dad still does. He says a prayer for our entire family before every single game. Obviously, through tough times, we learned that's when you pray, that's when you come closer to God. So I think within the past 3 or 4 years is when we really started becoming closest to God. And just as a family, we do Bible plans on the Bible app. So if that makes sense.
I love that. I really love the Bible app and doing plans, especially it's a way for me to connect with some people from either my past experiences or just being in somewhat of a community with other believers. The other thing I loved was, now my kids are only 3 years old and 5 months old, but I know at some point, we're probably going to be involved in sports that take place on Sundays and stuff like that. And for the weeks that we're not able to be in church, I envision something very similar where either myself or I'll probably put it on them at times to come up with a topic from the Bible and, just have our own little sermon. So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, another thing real quick. If we do have sports on Sunday, now that the COVID thing happened, our church does online. So we also listen to the church on the way to the games.
Yeah.
That's basically our thing we do on Sundays,
Yeah.
just to add a little.
Yeah.
A little.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Stuff that didn't exist when even 5 years ago.
So we're lucky.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your soccer background, growing up in soccer, and just some of your experiences that led you to become the player that you are today.
Okay, so obviously I started playing kitty kickers around probably age 3, 4, 5. I don't know for sure. And then I started playing soccer with older girls. I always played a year or two up. My dad was the coach. I played with my sisters for a little bit. But before that, I actually played with boys at the age of U10. I'd say U10 to U13. For that three years, I played with boys. So that really taught me mental and physical toughness. At the time, I was much taller than them because, boys grow way after. So I was I'd do good. I'd hold my own. So that was definitely a big stepping stone in my soccer career. And then after I stopped playing with the boys, That's when I played with my sister's team 3 years up. So I played with girls 3 years older than me basically my whole life, other than like the boys, like I said. And then I played with them for, I'd say, 2 or 3 more years before I went to a club in Philly. And that's who I currently play for. So I drive an hour and a half to practice, an hour and a half one way. And the team in Philly is just, it's like a much better, it's my own age group. And you get a lot more like experience. You get a lot more looks from college coaches. You play a lot better teams. You travel everywhere. So that was another thing. That's like where I ended up. But in the middle of all that, I tore my ACL. So that was another thing in my career that we're probably going to talk about later. But just in general, that was another stepping stone in my soccer career. So there's a lot of things that took place to get to where I am today. But that's basically the timeline.
I was going to ask you about the ACL next anyway, so let's just dive into it. So
Good.
tell me like how it happened. Tell me what that rehab looked like afterwards, and then getting back because you got back to a very high level. Just tell me what that looked like from an injury and a rehab perspective, and then
Yep.
we'll kind of dive into it from like a faith and identity.
First, before I tore my ACL, I've never had an injury before. Nothing, no ankle, no broken bones, literally nothing. Like I was always healthy. So I was at an ID camp in Virginia. It was a bunch of college coaches were there, so it was like a combined ID camp, 4 hours away from home. There was about 15 minutes left in the scrimmage, and a girl was playing on the winger. She crossed the ball. It went too far in front of me, so it went past me. I turned to go and run and get it, and my knee just caved in, and it felt like it popped. Like I heard it and felt it. So like I went down, I was holding my knee and stuff. The trainer came out, my sisters came over. They're like, "Are you okay?" Because like I said, like I've never been injured before, so like I didn't know what happened. And the trainer took a look at it and he was like, "Oh, like it might just be a meniscus," because like I could still jog and stuff. And then we had a 4 hour ride home, and by the time I got home, that thing was a bowling ball. It was huge, and we're like, something's not right. So when the swelling went down, we went to the doctor, they checked it out. They said it was an ACL tear. Now at the time I was only 14, so we didn't really know. We were like, wow, I'm like so young. Like, how does this happen at such a young age? So they got me in surgery right away. I did it at Penn State. They were great. They were helpful. And started rehab about, I'd say like, oh, 4 days later. Now they do it like the day after, which is crazy. But at the time I started like 4 days later. I was only on crutches for like a week or two. But the rehab part, it was tough. At times I was like kind of the guinea pig for blood flow restriction because it was new at the time. So that was another hard thing, it was crazy. And then like you get to the running, jumping, but something that the rehab taught me was how to lift. So I was never lifting before I tore my ACL, which obviously I was only 14, but still, I think that was like a blessing in disguise because I started lifting. I got with the trainer and I've been with them ever since. And they taught me how to rehab, well, both my legs, obviously, even upper body, all of that stuff. So that was like a big part of my rehab for sure. When I wasn't going to PT, I was lifting. And then I started running, all that stuff. I think I got into non-contact around 6 months. And that was good just because you ease into it. I was wearing the brace at the time. And then around 8 months, I played in my first soccer game. And I actually scored a goal, which is crazy, but I was loving it, wearing my brace, and then I'd say I only wore my brace for like 3 months, and then I got rid of it because the doctor said it's like whatever your confidence level is, that's when you can ease away from the brace. So I ease away from the brace. Every now and then when I'm playing, I still feel it because like the movements, well, not anymore, but back then I would. And it still get sore sometimes, but the rehab part, it was good. I think, like I said, it taught me to get stronger. Definitely mental toughness, but I think it was fun. Looking back at it, it was a good process.
Yeah, looking back at it, I'm sure when you were in it, gosh.
Well, oh my gosh, the week after surgery, I mean, the first week after surgery, I thought I wasn't going to make it. I was, I've never felt pain like that before, and I hope I never do again. It was insane. Like, my knee was just throbbing. My medicine wasn't working. I was reacting to I think it was like hydrocodone or oxycodone. I had to change to one of them because I was just like going insane. And the pain wasn't going away, so that took a lot of praying, trust me. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know how I got through that. I don't even think about it. It's terrible, but
And then
maybe I'm just busy.
even bringing up blood flow restriction,
Yeah.
which is really growing in the physical therapy space. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like even 5 years ago, there really weren't many people doing that. So
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
so many benefits to that. And I'm actually continuing to learn about that now in this season of my career. And it's just really cool, the benefits that it can have, especially in a case like ACL where you have certain restrictions with movement, and it just it helps you build that muscle back a lot faster.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So through that experience, were there any, I mean, it sounds like your rehab process was pretty smooth and your return was a little bit quicker than some others, but that 6 to 8 month time frame of like really getting back into doing stuff, did that test your faith at all, or did you have any concerns about the future of your soccer career, or what did that look like?
Absolutely. I remember the day that I found out, I would not stop crying, obviously, because I was like, my life is over. I'm never going to play soccer again, all this stuff. Like, those are the immediate thoughts. I'm like, I'm never going to be the player I am to get again today. Well, turns out I think I'm a better player now than I was back then, but also I grew up, so we can't really tell. But anyways, along the way, there were many challenges. So, like, first, I'd say I couldn't get my leg to be like I could get my leg straight, but I couldn't walk right. So that I had a walking therapist that would help me actually like use my quad, stuff like that. So the Biodex test, which I'm sure you know about, but like it's just where it tests your strength compared to the other leg. I couldn't quite pass the test. Like I was a little bit struggling, but they also tested early compared to what they do now. So I eventually passed in time, which is why I also got back to play earlier than everyone else. So that was a little different. When I started lifting, lunges and all that stuff, I had tendonitis right where my scar was because I used the patellar tendon. So that was always bothering me. And then the other thing was, I think just from going between different surfaces and just getting back into play, I had the worst shin splints, which I eventually went back to PT for. They'd scrape my shins, all that stuff. So that was another thing. And then when I started playing again, literally 2 weeks after my first game, sprained my ankle really bad. I was out for another 2 weeks, but it was the opposite side of my knee. So just those little things, like as easy as I made it sound explaining it, there were definitely challenges throughout the way that tested my faith. And like you said, like even just the injury, I was like, why do I have to have tendonitis right now? I just went through this entire ACL pain and now it's still hurting and stuff like that. The walking part, which I didn't care about, but the PT did, and it's like I'm glad they fixed it, but still, that's just another like frustrating thing. Obviously, the shin splints are so painful. Like I said, you just go through an ACL, but now you have to deal with this. So there's a lot of frustration throughout it, but stay faithful, pray, all that stuff. That helps.
So I want to have you tell us a little bit about your club soccer experiences and some of the traveling experiences that you've had over the past year or 2 years.
Okay. So, well, when I started playing with my club, I was just a guest player because it was really far. I didn't know if I was actually going to be on the team. And then I tore my ACL right after I joined that. But then COVID also happened somewhere in between then, so I stopped playing with them for like a year. And when I came back to the team, I actually played a year up because they needed a striker. That was my position, and I guess at the time I was good enough to be playing a year up. So I played up with the older team, and we traveled a lot. We go to we've been to California the past 3 years, and I'm actually going June 25th again because that's where the national playoffs are. I've been to Florida, St. Louis, Virginia, which is kind of close. They've been to Arizona, which I didn't go in because of my ACL. Washington, Seattle. So we've traveled everywhere. And also during the summer, this is like a separate team, but it was like a team I got selected to be on. It was like a USA team, but it wasn't with the actual US women's team. It was a different USA team. But I traveled to Denmark and England, and we played against women's professional teams over in Europe. So that was another cool thing I did with my soccer traveling.
And you performed well in those international games too.
I guess. Yep. So it's all exciting stuff.
All right. So, with all the accomplishments that I read off at the beginning, all these travel experiences, you would think that this athlete is going to some huge, big time D1 school. But you are going to Old Dominion, which is, I'm sure, a great school. But tell me a little bit. Yeah, we talked about this during some of your ice baths after practice. Give me a little outline of your recruiting process.
Yeah, and people even say that to me all the time. They're like, why are you going to Old Dominion? And I'm like, well, everyone has a different recruiting process, and mine was not the best. So, like I said earlier, I played on Penn Fusion a year up. And when I was playing with the year up, all of the girls on my team were already committed to college. They were already recruited. Most of them were committed to college. So we would still go to showcases, we'd still go to tournaments, but the coaches that were there were very minimal, and they were like Division 1 or Division 2 or Division 3, low Division 1. So I did not get a lot of experience, or not the word experience, like
Exposure.
Wow, that's the word I meant. I didn't get a lot of exposure to college coaches. And on top of that, my team wasn't the best. Like, we struggled to work as a team. A lot of the girls were selfish. So, like, I didn't even playing up top. It's like, you need your teammates to pass you the ball. And if you're not getting the ball, how are you supposed to show off your skills? So, that part was pretty hard. So, when June 15th hit, which was when I was allowed to start talking to college coaches, I got a good amount of colleges reach out to me, but none of them were the high Division 1 schools. None of them were Power 5 conference. There's a lot of just lower Division 1s, which I was still thankful for. I wasn't expecting a lot to reach out just on the first day that you can get recruited. But then I talked to some of the girls on the younger team, which was my real age group, and they were getting emails from all the big schools. And I was like, well, that's great. So anyways, I continued playing with this older team because they needed me to, which did not benefit me. And the recruiting just wasn't too good. I mean, there'd be schools reaching out, but it wasn't a big interest. It's just a general email like, hey, we saw you play. Let's keep in touch. I did probably like 25 phone calls. I called Dayton, College of Charleston, Richmond, Cincinnati. I'm trying, like, just nothing, like none of the high Power 5 schools. So then I was talking to Old Dominion, which I wanted to go down south originally. Recruiting, I wanted to go down south. So up north, I'd still call the coaches, but I didn't. I told, like, I was looking to go down south. And then, so anyways, I got to Old Dominion. I went to their ID camp. And the coach at the time, the assistant coach, told me when I got off the field from the scrimmage, he goes, you're a great player, but my strikers score goals. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, I guess that's my answer for Old Dominion. So I was like, all right, not talking to them anymore. Like, I'm not good enough for them. So whatever. So I'm still playing with this team, this 06 team, the older team. And I get to Florida, a showcase. And I had a really good game, and the Old Dominion head coach, who's a girl, reaches out to me, and she's like, are you sure you don't want to come here, all this stuff? Like, we'll get you down for an official visit. Just give us one more chance. Because I told them already, like, thanks for everything, like, I'm done talking to you after the camp. So then the head coach reached out to me, and I was like, and my dad was like, whatever, like, just go on a visit, you know, it's an opportunity compared to other schools. So I went down to the campus, we gave him another chance, and first off, the coach is not there anymore who said that to me. So that was already a plus. He's gone. The campus is super nice. The outskirts are a little questionable, but the campus is nice. It's 30 minutes from the beach. The girls were super nice. The coaches, the head coaches, they're from Scotland, so I love their style of play. It's European, and obviously the head coach, she seemed very interested in me. And when we talked to them after, they gave me a very generous scholarship. So it was like, I was like, the other thing was I wanted to go to a school that I could actually play my freshman year, and I wanted to go to a school that wanted me, that I didn't have to chase. Like, they wanted me. So it just seemed like the right fit. Even though the whole ID scandal, the ID camp scandal, I was like, whatever, he's not even here anymore and stuff like that. So I decided that it was the best fit for me. Like I said, the girls were nice. It's close to the beach. It's down south. It's far enough from home that, like, I'm away from home, but not too far. I can still drive to it. And like I said, just the generous scholarship. So, you know, that was kind of how the recruiting process went. But, you know, there's always stuff that's left out. But that's the general idea.
I want to take a second, and for both myself and anybody who's listening, trying to just put myself in your shoes at that time, because one other thing that we had talked about before is you either had teammates or were playing against girls who were going to like LSU and SEC schools and all these top schools, and you were just as good, if not better, than some of them.
Yep.
And to think about having that skill, having, you know, being this top level caliber athlete, but not having the recruiting process to go with it. Like, I can just imagine some of the things that could possibly go through your head, things that would have gone through my head. Like, I'm out here, like, doing just as much, if not more, than these other girls who are getting all these, like, all of this recruiting and all these big schools. So, like, what's wrong with me? Or like, what's going on that I'm not getting the same attention?
And I'd ask myself all that. And even to add on to the frustrations, we were specifically going to Penn Fusion to get recruited to a Power 5 school, because why else would I be driving an hour and a half? I could have stayed at my local club and got to Old Dominion, genuinely, because my local club has already sent girls to JMU, which JMU beats Old Dominion. So, like, they're just as good, if not better than Old Dominion. So it's like, why did I just drive? Why did I just spend an entire month of my life driving to this club just to go to Old Dominion? So that was another thing that I was frustrated about. But this past year, I did get a new coach, and he talked to me about it. He just came into the club. He's from England. He's with U.S. Soccer, all this stuff. And he's talked to me about it. He was like, if I was here earlier, I could have helped you. But at the same time, like, I'm, like, grateful for the help, but it's like, why could I not get there myself? You know what I mean? So it's still, like, I'm thankful to have him as, like, a ally, but still, it's still frustrating,
So, and I also just think, like, in sports, we think about playing up and how much benefit that offers you. But in your case, it actually hurt because all the girls around you were already committed. So there was no reason for a whole lot of coaches to be there.
Exactly.
Versus your own age group. So that was just very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So then this past year, your senior year of high school was like the Ashley Econ domination tour.
I don't know.
So we already outlined all of the awards and all the things that you won this year in your senior year, but you took our team to the state championship. Didn't quite go the way that everybody wanted, but can you just like talk to me a little bit about what your senior year was like, just playing in the high school setting, and kind of that I would call it an unexpected run to the state championship.
Absolutely. So I didn't play high school my junior year because I was coming back. Well, the ACL was back my freshman year, but I just had terrible shin splints. My ankle was bad, and I was trying to get recruited. So I was like, I think what's best for me is to take off my junior year, get healthy, work on the specific things I need to work on, and just try and get recruited. So I took off my junior year, and then my senior year, I was like debating if I was going to play, but everyone was like, well, your sister's going to be on the team. But then she tore her ACL. So then we were like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And in the end, I was like, when I look back on it in 20 years and someone asked me, why didn't you play high school soccer your senior year? What's my excuse? There's no excuse. It's like, you only live once, go have fun. So going into it, I was like, okay, this is high school soccer, completely different from club. Everyone's at their own skill level. I'm going to go in, be a leader, teach them how I play soccer if I can, just help them out. I can't get frustrated because that yelling at people doesn't help. And it's like, I'm just going to do my best, be patient. I'd be happy if we have a winning record. That's honestly the mindset I went in the high school season with. I was like, I'd be happy if we have a winning record. So I was like, this will help me with my leadership, staying calm, in situations, because it's easy to get frustrated, but anyways, so that's kind of my mindset about playing high school soccer. And then thinking about all the awards I won, I wasn't even thinking about trying to score a goal every single game. It kind of just naturally happened, which, once again, I wasn't trying to do. Like, it just ended up, I kept scoring and scoring. More towards the end of the seasons when people started talking about, like, oh, she has this many goals. And I was like, I never tried that. Like, I wasn't trying to rack up the goals or anything like that. And let alone all of these awards I never expected to get. I was just talking to my sister, actually, in the car yesterday. And she was like, Ashley, like, I'm playing high school soccer next year. Everyone's going to expect me to get all these awards. And just because I'm your sister, I was like, Addison, you don't go into the high school season having that mindset. I said, I wasn't even expecting to score goals last year. I was going to be an assist or let other people score goals. Like, I didn't care. I was just going there to have fun and stay in shape. But like you said, it ended up, it was unexpected. And then after the season started, I was like, oh, like, we might make it into playoffs. Like, oh yeah, like, this is great. And then we made it, we were first seed in playoffs, I think, and then we kept going. I was like, oh my gosh, like, we might be able to win districts. But I was like, if we win districts, like, that's good. Like, that's amazing. I was already happy. And then we continued, and I was like, my gosh, this is getting not real. So we ended up beating a team that we lost to my sophomore year in states 4-0, and I was like, this is just not real. Like, how is this happening right now? And then we made it to state championship, and I was just overjoyed by making it to the state championship. Like, it didn't even seem real to say those words out of my mouth. And obviously, like you said, it didn't go the way we wanted. We ended up losing 1-0, but at the end, I did not shed a single tear. I was just overjoyed by being at the state championship. I was so proud of the girls around me. I mean, they were all there. Most of them were younger. They've never been in a setting like that, and they gave it their best. I was so proud of everyone. I was happy to be there, and it was just amazing. And through that all, get this, before every single game, me and the other captain, Janae, we said a prayer before every single game, and it would calm us down. And anytime, and we did have a winning record. We only lost 2 games, and even through those 2 games, we still stayed together as a team. And after losing those 2 games, we still won districts and made a state final. So it was such a great journey. I'm so happy that I played, and I don't have a single regret. So
Yeah. First of all, from a spectator standpoint or from the sideline, like I I get the unique perspective of I'm close enough to make observations, I'm close enough to enjoy the relationships with coaches and players, but like it's not my game to win or it's not my season to play. And so I feel like I was able to just sit there and enjoy the moment because I was in it enough to feel something, but not in it so much that I couldn't see what was happening around. And it was the best experience of my athletic training career being a part of that season. So thank you and the coaches and the whole team for that.
Yep.
It
We
was
didn't try, but it just happened.
it was just awesome. So now I want to dive a little bit deeper into like the spiritual side of all this. So this was my first year at the school, and we got to know each other in the first week of preseason because you had an ankle injury. And
Game
so,
one.
yeah. And so we got to work like right away, and we got to know each other pretty well. You had no choice. You had to listen to me tell that my old
I
stories of
know.
high school soccer.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll never forget.
I'm glad that your career ended a little bit better than ours did. But anyways, so it was awesome getting to know you because and I felt like you had some genuine interest in learning more about me, which made me feel comfortable in a new setting. But we learned about each other's faith pretty early on, and I felt like that was something that I was able to tap into with you throughout the season. And I remember it might have been in the first 2 weeks of the season, maybe in the first 3 games or something like that. And you and I had a conversation about one, you were getting nervous before games, which you typically didn't, but you were nervous playing in front of
All the people.
all the people that you go to school with because to this point, like none of your classmates or friends or whoever, they're not going to Denmark to see you play. They're not going to California to see you play, but playing for
Exactly.
your local community, you were getting nervous. And you said something to me that stood out and you said, why me? Like, why am I the focus? Why am I the one that God chose to like put on this stage in this way? And so we kind of went back and forth and throughout the rest of the game, I sat there and thought, why not her? Like if I was playing the role of God, which is something it's a dangerous game to play. But if I'm playing the role of God and I'm looking at the community, like there was no better option to serve as like the star of the stage or you know what I mean? Like the focus was on you. And that's exactly as Christians, that's the kind of person that we want to represent us. Someone who is going to get the attention and then be able to show us all and show everybody that yes, the attention's on me and I'm just going to reflect that back on God. So like I'm just sitting there and you're like so hyper focused in the moment of why me? I feel all this pressure from the outside and everyone's watching me. And I'm sitting there on the outside saying, let's get more people to watch her because this is the exact type of person that we want to root for.
Getting nervous just thinking about it.
So, I mean, tell me like what you were feeling or what your mindset was through all of that. And I want to talk like more specifically on the spiritual side. Like what kind of conversations were you having in your prayers? What kind of
Yep.
feelings were you having?
Yeah. So obviously, just going in the high school season, I felt the expectations were very high, and like anytime someone would ask me, like, are you playing high school soccer? Like, the team needs you and stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, all the pressure's on me. Like, if we lose a game, it's going to be my fault, all this stuff. And then, like you said, at club games, we don't play in front of people. We play in front of our parents. But the community being there, for some reason, made me nervous. Under the lights, you do the national anthem. You have more, like, downtime, warming up with the music. It makes you hyper and stuff. So, like I said, we had that conversation. And honestly, before every game, well, I already told you this, but my dad and I always did a prayer. And he'd just say, let Ashley play to the best of her ability, give her strength, give her confidence, all of that stuff. And that's already calming. And then during the national anthem, I'd say my own little prayer. Going out on the field, I do the Lord's Prayer by myself. And then in the huddle, Janae, so she had her little, like, it was like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, bless this field we play upon. And then I'd say something like, Lord, give our team strength, keep us safe out here, let us work as a team, give everyone confidence, just like the little things. And honestly, I think it helped us calm down. So most of the games did end up going our way because we had a winning record, which was good. But when things weren't going our way or just frustrating, I just, you take a deep breath and you think, okay, it's not that deep, calm down. Everything's gonna be fine. And even like any little mistake, like back in the day, if I made a mistake, I'd be so embarrassed. I'm like, nowadays, I just brush it off. So I think really just giving your worries to God is what helped throughout the entire season. Obviously, the nerves are still going to be there every now and then, but if you're playing for the glory of Him, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You are playing for the glory of Him, so you are serving Him through the talents that He gave you. So it doesn't matter. Everyone makes mistakes, everyone's humans. And then when I did have a good game, like if got an interview after the game, first thing you do is thank God. I'd like to thank God for, giving me this ability, giving me this opportunity. So it's just, and just saying it out loud makes you feel better. You have someone always with you, watching over you, whether it's a guardian angel or it's Him. So, it just helps you stay calm in the moment, even when you feel like the whole world's spinning around you.
Then even taking that a step further, going back to the recruiting process and some of the emotions that you felt around there, like what did that look like spiritually? How did that play out spiritually? Because that is when things don't go, whether it's recruiting process or something in a game or something in life doesn't go your way, like it's fair for us to question like what's happening or why things are happening. But what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think like almost everyone as a believer knows the saying, everything happens for a reason. And that's what I very much live off of. I know my family lives off of that. And so while this was all happening to me, like I said, another question, I said, why me? Why is this happening to me? Like no one else, everyone else is having, well, not everyone, but the girls that I'm as good as, if not better, they're getting this easy walkthrough and I'm over here struggling. And it's like, why me? So I know my dad and I were both frustrated throughout the process, but we both say, give it to God. God has a plan. Everything happens for a reason. There's a reason why I'm going to Old Dominion. Whether it's so that I can go there and be the star, or whether it's to learn a lesson. If it doesn't go my way, so what? It's going to teach me adversity. And if it does go my way, then that's awesome. Maybe I'll be able to get to a higher level of school. Or maybe I'm going to Old Dominion because the coaches are great. And then after my college career, they're going to get me somewhere farther, like to a professional team. So, everything happens for a reason. I trust God's plan. So I think that's what really helped me accept the fact that who cares where I'm going to school. I should be thankful that I'm getting a good scholarship. I should be thankful that someone wants me. And I should be thankful that I'm getting the opportunity. So honestly, whenever, well, don't let him hear this, but I think my dad was more frustrated about it in the end because he's like, he believes in me so much, which I appreciate him for. But I'm like, Dad, it's like, there's nothing we can do about it, Like, let me go in my freshman year, see how it goes. If it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't, It's not in our control at this point. So, like you said, give it to God. God has a plan, and everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And this was another post-practice ice bath conversation where again, like, yes, everything happens for a reason. I connected the dots to, like, I felt the same things. Now, granted, on a much smaller scale, and it wasn't even in athletics, but I had this big dream of becoming a physical therapist. And I had to go for athletic training because I didn't take the right step coming out of high school and with education stuff. And so I never planned on practicing as an athletic trainer. I thought I was just going to get the degree and apply to PT school and just go from there.
Yeah.
But I applied for 4 years, 20 different schools, heard no every single time, did not get a single interview, did not get anything. And then a family friend told me that Messiah was starting their PT program. I thought, there must be a reason why I didn't apply there. Maybe I didn't have the prerequisite courses or whatever. And I looked into it, and nothing came up. Like, there was no reason why I shouldn't have applied. And so I learned it was because they were just starting their PT program. They had not had any classes, any courses. They were looking to start their first class. And so I applied. I got my one and only interview. I got my one and only offer, and I accepted it. And so when I was standing there, or when I was standing in the midst of those 4 years of not getting into school, I'm thinking like, okay, I have this friend who I had a better GPA than, and he got into PT school. Or I have this friend who is in PT school, but I have way more like hours from working athletic training. I worked in a PT clinic. I had over 3,000 hours, and I couldn't figure out why no one would accept me into PT school.
Yeah.
And it's because the PT program that was meant for me was not created yet. So God had me learning and waiting and growing my spiritual endurance. And I tell this story all the time, so sorry to all the listeners who have heard this 5 times, but like my dad would say, okay, what's your next step? Like, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do from here? And I said, nothing. This is my purpose. This is what I'm meant to do.
Sure.
I'm just going to keep going for it. And then it happened. And then, so I look back and I'm able to connect all these dots. And I said the same thing to you, because it's easy to draw parallels between those two stories. There is a reason why you're not at LSU. There's a reason why you're not at UNC. There's a reason why you're not somewhere. And that's because there is something great that is going to happen from you going to Old Dominion. Whether that is success on the field, or again, teaching you adversity, or whatever, there is something that's going to happen at Old Dominion that you'll be able to look back at and say, this is why I ended up here. And you'll probably end up saying, God, thank you for sending me here and showing me this, or teaching me this, or giving me this experience that I wouldn't have gotten somewhere else.
Exactly. I 100% agree.
So I think even the fact that you have that mindset going into it already gives you like a leg up, because that's sort of a mindset that I had, but sort of mindset that I really struggled with during those years where I couldn't figure out why things were happening around me the way they were.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Agree.
All right, let's move on to Word Up.
It's time for Word Up.
For today's Word Up, I actually was reading through some Bible verses. I actually almost chose the story of Queen Esther because it was a female for you. But I actually ended up at the story of Moses for a couple reasons. It's not a perfect parallel, but I'm just going to talk through the scenario and kind of tie this together here. So the story of Moses is one of the most significant figures in the Bible, and is primarily found in the book of Exodus and some of the other Old Testament books. So Moses was born to Hebrew parents during a time when the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt. The Pharaoh, fearing the growing population of the Hebrews, ordered all male Hebrew babies to be killed. To save Moses, his mother placed him in a basket on the Nile River, where he was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter and was adopted as her son. So as an adult, Moses witnessed an Egyptian taskmaker beating a Hebrew slave, and in anger, he ended up killing the Egyptian. So he was fearing for his life, and Moses fled to the desert of Midian, where he lived as a shepherd and married Zipporah. So one day while Moses was tending his flock, he encountered God in the form of a burning bush that was not consumed by the flame. So the bush was burning, but it wasn't being consumed. And God called to Moses to return to Egypt and lead the Israelites out of slavery. Despite his doubts and his insecurities, Moses obeyed God's call. He returned to Egypt, where he confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Israelites. And when Pharaoh refused, God sent 10 plagues upon Egypt, culminating in the death of the firstborn sons of Egypt. The Israelites were finally freed after the 10th plague, and Moses led them out of Egypt in what became known as the Exodus. And then here comes the famous part where God parted the Red Seas through Moses to allow the Israelites to escape from the pursuing Egyptian army. The sea closed back over them, drowning Pharaoh's forces. And then in the wilderness, Moses received the 10 Commandments from God on Mount Sinai and established the laws by which the Israelites were to live. So that's kind of where the fun part of the story stops, and it starts to pull away from the context that I wanted to draw here with Ashley. But Moses is one of the most memorable figures in the Bible, and his story is a testimony to God's faithfulness, his power to deliver, and the importance of trusting his guidance. So tying this back to Ashley, like, we are all chosen for different roles and different purposes, some more prominent, some less prominent. But imagine if Moses ignored the calling to be a leader. Imagine if Moses said, "You know what, God, I don't want to be front and center. I don't want to be the person that's leading this group of people out of Israel." So I just draw back to like that early part of the season when you're saying, "Why me?" Like, I'm gonna call you Moses in this situation, and like leading the team, leading the program through this incredible run to the state final. And I know like it can sound a little bit superficial because we're comparing like this big Bible story to like high school soccer, but at the same time, like, this spiritual situation is very similar. You have someone who is a great leader who doesn't necessarily want to be front and center, but gets put in this position and then through God pushed forward into a really great ending. So that's the story that I came across that I wanted to relate to you.
I like it. That's a good one. And I like how you related like, obviously Moses, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a compliment.
Yeah. Ashley Moses, that's what I'm going to call you now. So then now we've talked about that. So talking about embracing the call for your next chapter of soccer, your next chapter of life, going to college. So when you look back on that season of your life that we just talked about, what did you feel God was saying to you, and how did you live it on and off the field?
Well, I'd say, so like you said, I was asking you why me, but I think that season proved why he chose me to be who I am. He knew that I could take the pressure. He knew that I could be a leader. He knew that I had the talent to do what needed to be done on and off the field. So just even like through practices and stuff, like picking each other up, being there for people with outside soccer situations. I just think that it made me realize that I was made for this lifestyle. He gave me this talent. And like I said, I'm glorifying him by using it and being just not even the success, even the failure, but just through it all, it teaches me that like I was made for this. This is the reason I got put on earth, be that soccer player, use your talent, help other people, be a leader, teach the people around you. So I think, like I said, just through the soccer season, I think it made me realize like I was made for this. Like, this is why I am so successful. Because even like people would say to me, they're like, "How do you score every single game?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to. Like, it's just happening." You know what I mean? And it's like, there's some people that purposely try and do that, and they're arrogant and they're selfish. But like, I throughout the season tried to stay humble about it. It's like I tried just not just with scoring goals, but just in general. Like, well, it wasn't me. There's God being with me. He's the one who knows how the game's gonna end. He's the one who knows who's gonna score all the goals. So it's just like, I don't know. I think, like you said, it just teaches you there's a reason why everything happens, and just the talents that you have and stuff like that. It really brings it out and shows you what you're put on earth for.
Last question for you today. How do you anticipate carrying that into your next chapter as a freshman where your role might be totally reversed? You already said about going to somewhere where you expect to have an opportunity to play early on. But again, we've already acknowledged the possibility that things might not go the way you want. Where does that faith carry you in this kind of season of unknown?
Yeah, so I think, going into it, like you said, I expect to play, but you don't know if I'm going to play. So I'm really just going in with an open mindset. Once again, everything happens for a reason. Whatever happens, happens. There's some things that you can control and there's some things that you can't control. So whatever is out of my control, that's what you give to God. The things that are in your control is the effort that you give at practice, being in shape, doing the extra work on and off the field, the classroom, all that stuff. It's just in general, like anything that is out of your control, that's what I plan to give to God. Going down there, I'm going to be in a new environment. I'm going to be away from my family. So my faith is really going to be important. I hope when I'm down there, I can get to church. They did say that there's church, like some of the girls on the team go to church. So I hope that I can, join something or even do like a Bible study, just because that will make me feel closer to home for sure. Even like if I'm homesick, I do have a few books that I'm going to bring with me. I have a calendar, a Bible verse calendar. I have a few posters to keep up in my room. And I think that's just what's going to help me, with the big change. And then if things don't go my way, like I said, nothing you can do about it. You give it to God and you just have to keep praying. So I'm sure throughout the next, my freshman year, there's going to be many, many ups and downs. And like I said, you just have to pray about it, give it to God, try not to worry about it, keep reading, your verses, your motivation. So that's what I plan to do.
There's no doubt that there's going to be some serious ups and downs in your next year and serious ups and downs in your next 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm learning as I get older. I'm just 15 years down the path ahead of you. So it never stops being up and down. It never stops new challenges being presented. But as I always say, or what has come up several times on this podcast, the one with Rachel Shim, being grounded in something that's not going to move. So there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, but if you are grounded to something that is consistent, always there, never changing, you're going to be able to withstand it. So
Yep. He'll always be with me. So I'll always have a friend no matter what,
Yeah.
It's I'll be good.
Yeah. Well, I just want to let you know that it was a super total honor to get to know you and get to work with you in my first year at the school here. It was fun working with everybody, but I really appreciate the connection that we had over our faith and the ways that I was able to connect with your family over the course of the year. And I will always be here to support you in whatever way I can, from my little tiny perch here in Lancaster County, and just whatever you need, I'm here to support you. So thank you for making my first year great.
Well, I appreciate that. I would definitely be back to visit, You made my year fun too. Every practice I was like, can't wait to see Kurt. So it was a great time getting to know you. I'm glad that we connected in the way that we did, Thank you for having me on this podcast. That's an honor in itself. I know you were talking about this, how you were going to start it up, and you followed through with what you said. So I'm just glad that we found a time to do it, and you had me on. So it's super exciting. I appreciate it.
And you followed through because you agreed to be a guest once you graduated, and now here we are. So
here I am.
We both followed through.
All right, we kept our word.
That's going to do it for today's episode of Faith in Practice. Thank you once again to Ashley for joining us today. Best of luck to her at Old Dominion. If there's ever anything that anybody wants to connect about, you can always find my information in the show notes or on Instagram at higherpowersportspt. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Faith in Practice. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to help you live out your faith on and off of life's playing fields. If today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us continue sharing stories and insights that empower you to align your faith with your vocation. For more resources or to connect with us, visit hpsportspt.com. That's hpsportspt.com. Remember, your faith isn't just a part of your week, it's a part of your life. Let your light shine.